Pleasure to welcome to the podcast Carolina starting goalie, honorable mention All-American last season. It's Alecia Nicholas. Alecia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always like to hear the story of the first time you jumped into goal. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do actually. So we were at a lacrosse tournament in upstate New York. It was really rainy. I think it was by a lake because of course it was. And we we needed a goalie, and I had started playing like 2 years after all my other teammates because everyone started in like second grade and I started in like fourth. And I was like, you know what, I'll try it. Jumped in net. I had like 3 saves. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm awesome at this. I'm just gonna keep doing it. So like every tournament I played goalie. My parents didn't want me to do it. I jump in at practices, and then the next thing you know, like a year later, I was like, I don't know why I'd play anything else. So
Love it. Yeah, sometimes it's that first taste of initial success when you jump into goal that really like drive. I know it was for me. I made a save, like barely. I hadn't even played like 1 week of goalie, and I made like a huge save for the team when our goalie, our starting goalie, got a penalty, and I just stood there, hit me right in the face mask. But after that, I was really hooked, and
yeah,
it sounded like that little first taste of success for you got you hooked. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was, I think I held my stick like I had 6 inches like further from the head, like I wasn't
Mhm.
doing anything. They're like, you do
Yeah.
it like this, like during warm-ups. And I was like, cool, got it. Like, and yeah, 3 saves, and I was like, I'm awesome at this. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna keep doing it. So
That is funny that you mentioned that, because I do see that with kids that are first, like just starting out, like it's the first time, like instead of grabbing the stick sort of, where the shaft meets the plastic, they grab it kind of halfway and sort of like move their body out of the way and try to like swat at it. That's kind of
yeah,
the technique that they use, not knowing anything, right?
that was exactly what I was doing. And I learned it maybe 5 minutes. They're like throwing balls at me. I'd never tried before. I think that was the
Yeah.
first time putting on the gear.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I'm great at this. I'm gonna keep doing it.
Love it. So, why didn't your mom want you to be a goalie?
It stressed her out a lot. It took her like a couple years, and she's like, well, she's got the most gear on the whole field. Like she's safer than everyone else. But it took a little while for her to get there.
Yeah.
First, and my stepdad played lacrosse, and he was like, I just don't know if she's gonna want to do it. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. This is awesome, and just ran with it.
Yeah,
And
goalie
it,
mom or goalie dad is one of the hardest positions out there, right? Because
yes, it
I
is.
mean, not only like you're always rooting for your kid to do well, but when you're playing goalie, you got this added like fear of them getting hit with the shots. And so it's like,
Yeah,
ah,
yeah.
so,
She's like, she's got a helmet. No one else has a helmet on. She's good. Like
hmm,
that was the mentality.
yeah.
No, it just took a little while for her to get there.
All right. And she's there now because I see her I see her in the Facebook group that I run, and
Yeah.
she's posting Alecia
Oh,
first start at Carolina. Alecia All American. She's your number
yeah.
one fan now,
No,
huh?
she loves it. She loves it so much.
Yeah.
She like, yeah.
That's cool. Now, where did you then, you make those first couple of saves. How did you go about learning how to, I don't know, make saves on a more consistent basis?
Yeah, so I actually had a bunch of like really good goalie coaches really young, which I'm so fortunate. So we had Lori DeLuca, who I believe was an All-American at Delaware, and she coached for a while at my like little club team, like little town club team. And she showed me like the arc, she showed me how to hold the stick, and I was
Mm.
like 9 or 10 years old. And then my stepdad coached at like the collegiate level for a while. So she ended up moving away. But then he took over, kept teaching me, and like, just I just like had I was very fortunate to have a lot of coaching really young. And they
Mm.
just really helped me get there. Like they showed me the 5-step arc, and they showed me how to hold my stick and like be in an athletic position. And like, yeah, it's just kind of how I like, yeah, they just showed me the ropes, because they had collegiate experience and like both coaching and playing, and then I went to a club team and had more advanced coaching and stuff like that.
Love it.
But yeah.
And DeLuca, I guess that's Matt DeLuca's mom, pro
Or
goalie Matt DeLuca, or some
no,
relative.
it's Coach DeLuca. I believe he is at Delaware right now. He coached at Cornell for a little bit.
Oh, okay. So no relation to pro goalie Matt DeLuca.
No,
All right.
no. She I think she's got two not little anymore, but she's got two girls playing right now. And
Goalies?
her I don't think so. I don't think so.
That's why I don't know them. That's why I don't know them. We only follow goalies on this show.
I know. But her
Uh,
husband is at Delaware now.
Got it. Okay. Now is that the same approach that you take? Before we hit record, you mentioned you got like a camp coming up. When you're working with young kids, when you want to show young kids the ropes, is that sort of the exact same approach that you take now, or
Yeah.
kind of knowing what you know now, do you teach them something different?
No, so I'm a big, even at my in my collegiate career, I'm like big on fundamentals. So that's my first like go to is show them the stance, show them how to hold their stick, keep it very neutral, don't customize it too much when they're young, you know, neutral hand, don't make it exaggerated either way. They don't have to stand super wide, just start athletic and show them a pretty like average arc,
Mm-hmm.
and just get those fundamentals down and like how to step, we always teach 45 degrees and like you can tailor that as you get older or not, but
Mm-hmm.
type of stuff. So that's my approach is just big, easy fundamentals, and then you can tailor it as you get older.
That's smart. Yeah, that's how I coach. That's how I coach as well. One
Yeah.
of the things that is a huge problem, and I don't know if you dealt with this. I certainly did when I was starting. It's just that scared of the ball, right? When the shot comes, instead of making that motion to go get it, a lot of times like you flinch, or maybe some goalies go as far as to close their eyes, or like instead of going right to it, you come in and then you go to it, or sometimes some goalies move away from it, but as they try and save it. How do you recommend goalies train that or get that out of their system?
Yeah, so I definitely think when I was younger, I experienced that, but I think just drilling like the ball's coming stick side high, you got to step to it, you know what I mean? And like overriding that like initial brain like function to get away from it,
Mm-hmm.
and just like having those like repping it out over and over again. It seems very simple. There's no really like trick to it, I think. I know some people will like lay down and like their parents will drop balls on their face and have them not blink. But I didn't do anything like that. We just really like, you know, stuck to the fundamentals,
Yeah.
drilled like the ball's coming here, I'm stepping here, you know what I mean? And like override and get that muscle memory down. And then eventually, as you get older, it gets less scary
Yeah.
and you just step into it. And that's like your initial reaction. So,
Yep. I mean, and that's the exact way I did it. It just with reps, you build that muscle memory. And then, instead there just comes a point where like, now I'm not scared. I'll tell you what will help though. And I wish I went through this. So there's these, I mean, you can use tennis balls, right? And or these, this is not actually a lacrosse ball. It's like a soft lacrosse ball. And so like you get the same style of rep, but yet if you happen to get hit with it, you can keep going, and it doesn't hurt as bad. And I think that helps to train that fear response out.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. I also think like, starting younger, they are not shooting as hard.
Yeah.
The ball
Right.
doesn't hurt nearly as bad.
It's true.
So like, you just like it, everyone's like, oh, how are you not scared when it's coming like 60, 70 miles? I'm like, at this point, it progressed as I got better. So I'm just like used to it. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's like when you're younger, they're throwing what, like 5-10 miles per hour. Like the ball's not coming very fast.
Right.
And it might have hurt in the moment, but it definitely didn't hurt as bad as it would now.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite part about being the lacrosse goalie, Alecia?
I love playing, like I just love competing. I think it's so much fun. And it's like honestly it sounds counterintuitive, but it's a very like relaxing and comfortable feeling, just like being in the zone. And like really I just like love how intense and like competitive the position of goalie is. Like it's you and the other player, and you have your defense, and like you just get to like really like compete with your other your components, and like it's all like just so satisfying, like getting that stop, and it's like difficult, but it is just like such a satisfying feeling, and just to be able to compete, especially at the highest level, and like really put everything you have out there. I really do love it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, such a satisfying feeling to make
It
those
really
saves. I mean,
is.
especially in a big moment, but really all eyes are on you, and it's just incredible feeling. On the flip side, what would you say is your least favorite part?
Definitely the small margin for error. Like,
Mm,
you could be
yeah,
all over it, but you just get like an unlucky bounce. It skims your body wrong, and it's like, or you read it right, you're just a little slow. And it's just tough. It's hard, but that's why I think it's so rewarding on the flip side. But it's like, it's brutal,
yeah,
definitely. Like some of the tips you get, like you're like, I was all over it. I got over there, just an unlucky bounce, you know what I mean? But like
yeah.
that is what makes it so fun, and the like on the other side of it. So
Yeah, small margin of error. You're right. Yeah, you read the shot perfectly. You get your stick there. It maybe hits the side of the stick and goes in. Right. Oh
yeah.
man,
Or
yeah.
you just
Those
like
ones are
that touch
bummers.
too slow, and it's like you're
Yeah,
right there, you saw it, you just weren't fast enough, and it's like, yeah, it's
yeah.
brutal.
Love it. So upstate New York's got quite a bunch of lacrosse going on, a lot of club programs. Did you end up going to UNC? So someone saw you, right? Someone saw you out there. How did where did that come from? Was that from club or from high school, or how did your career progress at that point?
Yeah, so I got mainly noticed in club.
Club.
My club coach was, so Phil Barnes is who looked up in, like, his area was upstate New York, and he was also our goalie coach. And he was in upstate a lot. I went to a lot of UNC clinics, and
Wow.
like definitely the smaller ones. And we just built like a reputation. And yeah, that's kind of how I played a lot of club. I went to a lot of tournaments. I went to a lot of clinics, you know what I mean? And just eventually Phil saw me, liked me, and
Yeah.
here we
And you went to Carolina clinics in North Carolina,
no,
or
so
they'd come up to you?
they'd come up to like Maryland, or like Syracuse and up there and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I was talking with someone else, and I forget who it is at the moment, but we were talking about recruiting, and she was saying that like if you want to go to a specific school, like going to that school's clinic is like the number one thing that I recommend, because right they get to see you, they get to meet you, they get to see how coachable you are, they get to see you play, eyes are on you. In terms of return on investment, I know who it was now. It was Kimber Hauer was talking about that is the number one thing I'd recommend. And it sounds like you might say the same. Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
really think that, like, you get to talk to the coaches.
Yeah.
They get to, you had this like relationship with them that you wouldn't if you were at, let's say, like a 600-person camp, and you
Right.
had all these different coaches, you know what I mean? Because they see you, but they also see 600 kids, and they have to talk to 600 kids. But when you go to these like small, like 100-person clinics, like lunchtime, you get to go and like talk to them, and they bounce around and say hi to everyone, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you get to work really closely with the players and get to know like their personalities and stuff like that. So I think that's the best way to do it, for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, did you always have a dream of going to Carolina, or was that something that came about, a little bit later on?
Yeah, so I actually spent a lot of time down in North Carolina because my middle brother was in a study at the medical center. And so right as I started getting into the lacrosse, they won their, I believe it was the 2013 national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this school's awesome. I like love lacrosse. Like, actually met Jenny when I was like, still wearing like boys lacrosse shorts, and like, dressing like a little tomboy in like fifth grade, I think it was. And I just like fell in love with it. And I knew it was my dream school for sure.
Got it. So then when you go to these camps, like with that in mind,
Mhm.
there's got to be a lot of pressure on you, right? You got to be like, oh man, I want to go here so bad. I need to play well. How do you deal with
Oh,
those nerves?
yeah, I honestly just like, I think going into it being more curious than like nervous, like wanting to learn from them
Mm-hmm.
and like get to know them. And I also think like a lot of times players have like their heart set on one place and it's very like face value, but you have to make sure you like the place too. It's
Yeah.
not all about them liking you.
Yeah.
So going in like wanting to learn how to be a better goalie, wanting to like learn from all these like from their coaches, from the players, like all this stuff, and then also wanting to learn how they are coaching wise and see if you like it,
Yeah.
because you might like go to see a coach and you might not like how they coach,
Mm-hmm.
even if on paper it's your dream school.
Yeah.
So
It's a
just
great
like
point. It's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people just kind of fall in love with the idea of a school, or even like you're so young, it's like, I just love the colors.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like something very trivial like that. And to your point, there's so much more like the team and the coach and the
Yeah,
coaching style and the school and walking around the campus and the feeling you get. And is it a big school?
yeah,
Is it a little school? All this stuff, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like, I got fortunate because Carolina was my dream school and I really loved the people and I loved the coaches and I loved like the school in general. But like sometimes, and that I think that's why people transfer too, is because they just like don't fit at the school, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Going there and being like, yeah, do I like how they run their clinics? Because if they run their clinics like this, practice is probably really similar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what drills they're doing. Do I like how much they're coaching? Or do I like that they sit back more? Like that type of stuff is very important. And like your own process.
Love it.
So
Love it.
yeah.
Yep. 100%. So, when you're growing up, then what are there specific goalies that you enjoy watching and
Yeah.
learning
So
from?
I loved watching Caylee Waters.
Yeah.
And I actually had the like incredible fortune of her coaching at UNC my freshman year and like knowing her on a pretty personal level now.
Yeah.
I just thought she was so awesome. Like it was great. And I remember the first time she came to practice to like she just sometimes our alumni just show up and I was like starstruck. And I'm like a freshman and I remember I had like my first like bad practice and I just felt like I sucked, and we all go through it. And I just like really did not play well. And I was so worried about playing well the next day. And Caylee showed up and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, I didn't even worry about playing bad or good because I was like, oh my God, I watch Caylee play all the time. And now she's here at practice, practicing with us. And it was just awesome.
Yeah, that is
So
great. I've had Kaylee on, I've had her on the show and she's presented at the goalie summit and she's great. She's so passionate about this position and
yeah.
lacrosse and just awesome goalie mind. What would you say are some lessons, specific lessons that she taught you?
Yeah. So first thing is she just like not even like goalie, but as a person, she just like commits to everything she does and gives like 100%. And I
Hmm.
just think that's such like an admirable like feature of her. She is so positive and like jumps into everything. And I think that's why she's one of the reasons why I love competing so much is because she like showed me that you can have fun when you compete and it doesn't have to be this like very serious like I have to do good right now or something horrible is going to happen. Like
Hmm.
she just like jumps in, she's getting hit, she's like fired up about it, and I just like really learned from her like how you can just be so excited and have so much fun with it and I just think it's really awesome.
Yeah, that's such an important point, and I hope young goalies listening really take that to heart because when you first start out, it's like you're doing it for fun, and hopefully you are having fun, right? And that's what kind of gets you to stick with it. But there definitely arrives, or you get to this moment in your career where it gets a little stressful, whether that be like going for that, recruiting process, or as a freshman or sophomore on your college team, like, going through the whole college experience, fighting for that starting role. So you get to this point where it gets stressful, and then you forget about the fun. And ironically, you get tense, you get really tense, and you can see it in your game. But when you're having fun, you're like loose, you're relaxing, you give up a goal and you're like, oh man, that was a great shot. I'm going to get the next one. Right. So it's this whole flip on things. And so having fun is such an important lesson that I hope everyone takes to heart.
Yeah, and also just knowing that, like, competing is fun. Like, we do these, like, goalie drills, whether it's, like, the cage is flipped upside down, you're just tossing balls at each other, or, like, we do this drill where, like, someone's in the middle with 2 balls, and they're, like, throwing, and you're trying to score on the person on either side, and, like, we're competing, and we're, like, going at it, and, like, but it's, like, someone makes, like, a great save, and you're like, "Oh my god," like, "That was awesome," but then the
Yeah.
balls come back at you, and, like, just, like, learning in, like, those small situations that, like, you can compete with these people, but, like, really enjoy it, and then, like, letting that translate over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Kaylee's
Speak,
awesome at it.
Yeah. And speaking of that, so she did in the goalie summit, she did her whole presentation was on like footwork drills, right? So she had like the ladder out and she like live streamed all these footwork drills, and like all the comments in the comment section were like, man, I could watch Caylee do ladder drills all day, because she was like having so much fun, but like at the same time working so hard, and it was so cool.
No, she's awesome. She could literally, like, sometimes she would hop in on defense and, like, she was, like, asking for tips and pointers, like, and you're like, "Kaylee, you're playing on, like, the US, like, senior team,
Yeah.
but you wanna get better at defense." Like, it's just, like, she's awesome.
Yeah.
She's an incredible person, and I'm, like, really both to watch her when I was younger and then also get to know her on a more personal level is really she's awesome.
Love it. So she's probably one of the best goalies in the world. She played with Team USA. You got another one of the best goalies in the world, Taylor Moreno, your teammate. Talk to me about playing with Taylor.
Yeah, we had such a good relationship. I really, really, recommend getting close with, like, whether it's you're in high school or in college, like, having a good relationship with your, like, upperclassmen goalies,
Mm-hmm.
because she taught me so much, like, freshman year, whether it's how she communicated with the team, so, like, I didn't mess it up for them, or, like, when I'm in this instance, what do you think the best thing for me to do is? And, like, whether it's lacrosse or, like, just knowing how to run drills and, like, learning how to, like, communicate with the team is just, like, I got to learn so much my freshman year being behind her,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, it was awesome. It really was awesome.
Yeah,
So,
she's really really great. Obviously one of the best goalies, and I mean you guys won a national championship.
yeah.
That's got to be an incredible run. And you're part of that team, right? I mean, obviously she was the one starting the games, but you're working with that team. You're helping the team get better, and so that's got to feel pretty good for you. Talk to me
Yeah.
about that season.
It was really, really it was great. Like, there was just a lot of support, whether you played or you didn't, like, every single person on that team mattered,
Mm-hmm.
and you could feel it. And I think that's, like, really important. Like, there is just so much respect and love for each other, whether you were a 4-year starter or you had never played, like, significant minutes. And, like, you could just see that carry over onto the field, and, like, we just worked hard, but we enjoyed playing lacrosse, and we enjoyed seeing each other outside of lacrosse too. So, it was really special.
Yeah. And there were specific moments during that season and during that finals run where Taylor was not playing good, right? Um,
Yeah.
and
I
you went
mean,
with that. Was that you that went in there? Or was that another goalie? I'm just kind of putting
yeah.
this all together in my head right now. Maybe I should have worked it out before.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I did go in. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, let's go. All right. So, it just goes to show that like even if you're playing behind like one of the best as a backup goalie, like you're always 30 seconds away from getting in there, right?
always. I think I had a 2-minute warm up, and then I was in. We had a
Yeah.
timeout, and I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
time!" Now. Like,
And what
I
does your
was like,
coach say to you? Alicia, get ready. Get ready. You're going in.
"Yeah." They're just like, "Okay, Alecia, warm up." And
Yeah.
they're like, "Okay, Alecia, you're in now." And I was like, "Okay, I guess let's go." I didn't have a lot of time to think. I had to find
Yeah.
my mouth
Yeah. There you go. Right.
line.
Yeah. That's funny.
So
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that
thank you.
national champ. Would you guys get rings? Is that the is that what you get, or do you get something else?
Yeah, we have. You can see my. I don't know. I'm trying to right in the back. You can see my hat and trophy back there, and
Okay,
then the
I do see it.
at
Yeah.
home where they're safe
Okay.
and not in a college house.
Yeah, you don't just you're not just wearing it around
No,
to class on on a
no,
random
I
day.
am not.
Oh, all
That is
right.
on like a shelf at my mom's house.
Okay.
No, it's safe. No one's touching it.
Yeah. Would you say that, in that first year and at UNC and then even last year, would you say you've modified your goalie game at all? And if so, how?
Definitely, definitely. So I've worked with a lot of goalie coaches like Phil Barnes, who's our goalie coach at UNC,
Yeah.
and then I've worked with Rodney Rullman a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rodney,
Dude,
what a
Rodney's
guy!
awesome. Yeah.
Oh my God, he's 70 years old and still playing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It is incredible. So I've worked with him a lot, and just like I came in, I was playing too wide for my size. I was like, I had a lot of these like extremes. And we just like really narrowed it. Like I play a lot more narrow now. I play a lot more neutral. Like my hands aren't up
Mm,
here. They're very like loose and in my body and just like
yeah.
relaxed. I don't squat as much. I'm pretty like I've got a bend in my knee, but I stand pretty tall.
Okay.
And like, those little improvements just like have made a lot of a difference for me, especially transitioning to the college game.
Yeah. I love that.
Way different from high school.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to mention, just like on a technique, is a lot of times I do see goalies like hold their hands too high, in my opinion, right? And maybe it's because they're short and they feel like I need to have my stick like high. A lot of times, like when I was taught, it was eye, thumb, ball, right? And so I did start with my hand. It was like kind of way up here.
Huh.
And when you look at tape of like slow motion, a lot of times what you see is the first move then like corrects and it comes to like the chin or it comes to a little bit below the chin and then it goes out. And so
So
that's where you got to start with your top hand, I
yeah.
think. What do you think?
Yeah. And I agree. I think, there's a lot of different goalie techniques out there. And like,
Sure.
who am I to say that whether one's right or wrong? But for me personally, I used to have my hands like here
Mm,
because you want to cover net, you want to make it seem smaller than it is.
yeah.
But the shooters are so good in the college level that having my hand there wasn't really doing anything.
Right.
So I like brought it lower, much more neutral. So it was easier for me to get everywhere. Like
Yeah.
whether top left, I could turn my hands over a lot easier,
Yep.
It just made it. I mean, stake side high, six side high. Like it's pretty like compared to everywhere else, like you should be able to get there, I think. Maybe some goalies go low first. But like having your hands here compared to here, it should be pretty easy to make that same save or
Mm-hmm.
the same amount of difficulty, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Having here, your hands much more neutral, you can go everywhere so much quicker. So
Right.
that's my thought process. Also, it's a little easier on the arms, you are up here
Yeah.
compared to being like, a little more in the body. So
Yeah. Well, you used to have these goalies that like would hold the stick like way out to the side and even have
yeah,
like their bottom arm almost like locked out.
yeah.
And in fact, if you see like my rat logo, I sent a pic to the designer of a goalie like that. And so like that's how it, and I no longer recommend that stance. So I obviously had to get the logo redone
Yeah.
because I can't
I
can't
remember
have can't have a lax goalie rat with a bad stance. Anyway, you're just not athletic when you're locked out and there's so much tension, and that's kind of the
no,
opposite of what we're going for.
yeah. And so that's something me and Rodney talk about a lot is going from being like really stiff when you're sitting really low compared
Mm-hmm.
to being loose and a little higher.
Mm-hmm.
Um and just knowing that when nowhere locked out is good.
Right.
Like, standing straight up, not great. You're not going to move very fast, but also sitting all the way down and being tense there, not great. Having your hands all the way out, probably not going to help you, but having your hands all the way in, also not going to be great. But just finding that like happy medium where you feel loose and fast
Yeah.
is going to be the best part. So, like, for me, I've got shorter legs. Me being loose and fast is shoulder length,
Yeah.
like the shoulder width. But me being super wide is not going to be good for me.
Yeah.
But like someone who has much longer legs or is say 6'4", you know what I mean? Like having that wider base is going to be more comfortable. You're going to be looser and then faster. So
Totally. Yeah. A lot of different ways to play the position. And I think that, trying to apply a one size fits all approach to every goalie is a mistake. But yeah, there's definitely some rules that we're talking about that you can make sure you're not tense and you're athletic. And those are kind of like the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rodney calls me all the time, by the way. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but he calls me all the time because he loves to talk. He loves to talk lacrosse and specifically goalie more than anything in this world. So,
he's incredible. He's incredible.
Yeah,
I drove up. I lived in Chapel Hill this summer, and I drove up 3 times to work with him in Virginia.
Virginia. Okay.
Like, you're just insane. Like, you're driving 3 hours to get here. I'm like, Rodney, no, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, he is so much fun. We do goalie wars, and he's 70 years old, and he's like slinging them, and they're going in. Like, he is awesome.
Oh,
he's
man.
a great guy.
Yeah, he's great. I hope I'm that athletic when I'm 70.
Me too. Me too.
There you go. So last season, honorable mention All-American, your first year starting. Congratulations, by the way. That's an impressive feat. Talk to me about the season you guys had and you had last year.
Yeah, it was definitely a rebuilding year.
Mm-hmm.
We lost, I think, over 50% of our starters.
Oh, wow.
So, it was a young team and we were just like trying to get after it. The only real veteran side of it was the defense. And so I got very lucky there. We had like great defenders. Emily Knowles, Brooklyn Walker Welch, Gabby Hall, Livy Lawton. Unfortunately, Julia Dorsey got hurt, but she was great. And then Ellie Tragio coming in as a freshman. I was very fortunate to have such a veteran group come in who have played together, and I got to play with them last year as well a lot. So, just that was mainly the veteran side, and I was kind of the new guy on the block with them, and we had a lot of young people playing. So, I think it looked a little different than a lot of Carolina years look, but we had a good year and we learned a lot. I learned so much, and it was an awesome year, I think.
All right, let's talk about those lessons learned. Let's talk about those lessons learned. Give me one.
First, just try to relax. It's way easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But trust yourself. Don't get yourself too hyped up, be in the moment and just breathe, be there. That's the main one. And then you get into learning how.
That's a big one. Can we talk about that real quick?
Yes, of course.
That is a big one. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of goalies feel like I got to be perfect, right? I got to be perfect. And you don't have to be perfect. And guess what? You're probably not going to be perfect. And so it's about it's about working through those mistakes and trusting yourself and not getting so down on yourself that one goal given up then becomes 4 or 5 or 6 and you can't get back on it and you're not there for your team. So that's a cool lesson.
I know everyone talks a lot about Ted Lasso, and he talks about memory like a goldfish. Mm-hmm. And he you hear that and sometimes it doesn't click. But I think for me personally, it was thinking in game about what just happened isn't going to help me be better for the next shot. What's going to help me be better is resetting, getting to my fundamentals, and just continuing to be relaxed and trusting that I am a good goalie, which is much easier said than done.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I was going to ask, how do you do that? Because you give up a goal, ACC championship game, sideline goes nuts. They're like, maybe you hear someone go, you should have had that one. Like, how do you, what do you do personally as sort of a reset routine to once you give up a goal?
yeah, I like looking at my like defenders and knowing where like how they're doing. And I just take a deep breath, you know, kind of get a gauge of where you are in the game. Like, are we up? Are we down? What's the kind of vibe going on with the defense?
Mm-hmm.
Also, like trusting that like in my own abilities and in my defenders' abilities. Like they're gonna give me the best shots they can give me at this time. And I'm gonna like whether I make a save or not, and yeah, maybe I would have had it on a different day, but just knowing that I am a good enough goalie that I'm giving, my best at like any moment, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And trusting that. And that comes with experience. Like I didn't know that until the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like really, I didn't get to work on it until this fall. But like just okay, like my mid game is pretty good. And they don't need my best every day. They just need my good. And just knowing that and like trusting it.
Yeah. 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 Geez, especially in the women's game, because there's games that some go. I mean, you had a lot of great double-digit save games, but there's a lot of games where goalies will have like on the women's side like 4 saves, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a pretty good game. Like those 4 saves were very impactful, very
Yeah.
well timed, and changed the momentum of the game. And so, a lot of times it's about when you make those saves, not necessarily how many you make.
Yeah. And I mean, you never like try to make them at one point or the other. You're always trying to make the saves.
Right.
It's just like being in the moment, no, and like I said, knowing what your team needs from you and just keep trying to give it to them. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and so yeah.
All right. Well,
And like
it should be a good season coming up then. So now you had a young team. Now you got
yeah,
a lot of returners, or did you
yeah.
graduate more?
We have a lot of returners and we've got really good freshmen coming in.
Okay.
And like and the sophomores, they're not freshmen anymore, so they've played a year.
Right.
Like the people who may have been older but were sitting behind like all Americans, are now they've got a year under their belt and like yeah, I think we're
Yeah.
gonna have a very good team for sure.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this year.
All right, let's go. So did you last season you graduated all these starters, did you then feel like, oh, I got to take more of a leadership role of this team, or not so much?
So not last year for me. Like I said, we had Emily Knowles, who was playing a lot. We had Gabby Hall. Um, I think I didn't feel like they needed leadership from me.
Yeah.
I tried to give it where I could. I'm a big like you don't go into something like trying to be a leader. You just give them like you talk a lot, you ask them what they need from you, and then if they need a leader, you develop into that. And if they don't, you say, cool, you
Mhm.
just need me to call ball. Awesome. I'll just
Right.
call ball for you. You know what I mean? So they didn't really need that much from me this year on the leadership end.
Got it.
But yeah,
But who knows next year?
I know, right?
um,
Af-
yeah, I love that. Okay. Yeah, you're right. And I think that goalie of in and of itself is kind of a leadership position because, you're directing the defense and like I said, calling out the ball, but you certainly different teams need different things, right? Like some teams and defenses do need you to really be a leader and really kind of be the person that says, hey, come on, let's work harder, kind of like push them a little bit. And then other times
yeah,
you don't need that. So yeah, and kind of knowing your roles, I think very critical.
yeah, for sure. And in high school, I definitely had to be like, let's, figure it out. We need to get
Right.
going.
Right.
You know, especially being on the younger side compared to all of them, I was like, I trust you guys. I'm gonna follow your lead. And like definitely this fall, I've developed the skills a little bit more. I've been like, you know, being like, hey, we might need to stop right here, or you guys are doing good, like let's keep going, and knowing like in your communication when to like be like, no, you got it. Like I'm a big like in a 1v1 being like, especially down the alleys, like, good, hold him, good job, you're right there, like keep it like. And I know I'm sure Rodney's talked to you about that. I picked it up from him. But just being like, it doesn't need to be the most like outright leadership, but just like in the moment, giving your like teammates the confidence and then doing what they need from you is kind of how my take on leadership is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I had Dr. T, sports psychologist, on, and he said, like, when you pump up your teammates, when you pump up their tires, they go faster and they can go over the bumps, right? And so that's what you're kind of doing when you do that, and it just helps out the entire team, makes them feel good, makes you feel good. You guys play better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
What about other mental game lessons? So we talked about the Ted Lasso goldfish memories, kind of a
Yeah.
huge cliche one for us goalies, but are there other mental game lessons that you've learned along the way that you want to share?
Yeah, so I actually work very closely with a sports psychologist through the school. And the main thing that we talk about is train like how you want to do something. And like if I want to be able to overcome big challenges in games, I have to train that in practice. And I have to train my response to things in practice. So say like, I'm not having I go in for my 4 shots. I let everything in instead of being like, oh, I suck. Just being like very conscious of that mental talk. Be like, okay, if this happened to me in a game, how would I want to respond? And then training that. And
Mm.
that like makes a huge difference, I think.
Yeah, like how you practice is definitely how you play in the
Yeah.
games. You can't, because there was certain, I've been teammates with kids, not so much on my lacrosse team, but in other avenues where like they treated practice way differently and then expect to be like this different person or expect to like turn it
Mm,
on during the game, and definitely doesn't work like that.
yeah. And like it's not just your physical performance too, which is
Yeah,
like a like you have to train how you want to respond. Like, do you want to be relaxed or do you want to let yourself get very worked up? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and those things don't, I think some people think that if you just like think really hard about them, that it like happens, and you talk to someone and then the next thing you know, you're automatically about to do it.
hmm,
But when I work with Dr. Carr, who's my sports psychologist, we're like, okay, this is how I want to respond in these situations. Let's find these tough situations like in my life, whether it's lacrosse or not lacrosse related, and train it how I would want to respond. And then that like kind of translates over. And
yeah,
like when you have to do that in fall ball and you have to do that in practice. And then eventually it'll come to you in games.
yeah. How do you create that same level of pressure though in the practice? Um,
Yes.
Does
We
that
have,
make sense? The question?
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, all of our practices are very intense. I I'm a firm believer that our our whole bench could start at a lot of places. So every one of our on our team is very elite. So practices like are inherently elite. And we have good scrimmages, like inter squad and out of squad, like in our fall ball games. So it's just we breed a very competitive environment. So you have a lot of exposure to these like intense situations, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's about, I mean, it's about as much as you can creating that environment in practice, right? And like treating practice as if it's the ACC championship game and giving it that level of effort so that when you're in the ACC championship game, like it's almost like I've been here, right?
Exactly. And I mean, you don't have to kill yourself. Don't get you don't have to stretch yourself out to all the ends. But no, being able to be competitive and then you're like, okay, I'm relaxed in this
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
And just having that, like being able to train yourself to do that. So then you're like, oh, we're like the offense and the defense are getting after it today. At it, like this is fun,
Yeah.
and like being comfortable there, and like that translates. You
Totally.
know,
I also think that for goalies, like if you can develop drills and that sort of put the spotlight on them. So when I do clinics, like I love to do like King of the Hill, where like everyone who's at the clinic is now watching you take saves. And so it's not just you and a coach, right? Now you got all these eyes on you. It just helps you get used to that pressure of having people watch you and you still performing like you know how to do it.
yeah, we do goalie wars a lot, and
Yeah.
like you're really competing with the other goalies, and everyone's good. Like our entire like Elsie, Stella, Betty, our entire goalie like squad, goalie world is good.
Mhm.
So you're going at it in like goalie wars, and you might be like doing really well, and then they start creeping up on you, and you're like, okay, I got to turn this up again. Like, you know what I mean? And like being able to navigate that, and then in turn not like be all really mental about it and be like, oh, we're competing head to head, she's going to do better than me, this is going to cause like, and like letting yourself kind of go into that spiral of like, I'm not going to play, instead just being like, okay, this is like, you get to that's another situation where you just get to train the like competitive, like, okay, instead of like worrying like, oh, they're doing good, it's like, okay, like let's turn this on now, like this is
Yeah.
like fun and competitive, and you get to train that.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
so that's one instance. Sometimes we have game days where it's like, the coaches want us to be competitive, and like we'll do a little drill, and it's like, if you don't save it, you're out. It's like, okay, pressure's on, like let's, don't fret, just get into it.
Yeah.
So like little instances like that.
Yeah. Love it. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you a question about consistency because when you look at your save totals from last year, I
Yeah.
mean, here's a stretch of games: 9 saves, 8 saves, 8 saves, 11 saves, 7 saves, 7 saves, right? Like that's consistency. And a lot of
Yeah.
goalies have written to me and said, like, I struggle with consistency. Like some days I'll have the 7 save game, and then I have one, and then I have
Yeah.
one, and then I have 7. What do you say to that young goalie that is struggling with consistency?
Yeah.
What's your response to them?
Well, first thing I say that, it's not a science. Like, I haven't figured it out, and I'm sure there are people who have played a lot longer than me that are struggling with consistency. But it's just, I think that getting into it is, that's a good question. I'm thinking about this answer.
Okay.
Um,
I got some thoughts. I'll give my thoughts. Maybe it'll trigger something. Maybe it'll trigger something for you as well. It's you're right, because you can't control it, right? And every goalie's going to have that game
yeah,
where you just can't. I'm not seeing the ball, right? And so
yeah,
and those stink. But I
yeah,
think I think it goes back to what you were saying about the preparation. Just being consistent in your preparation and treating every day like it is the ACC championship, right? And
yeah,
training at that level and just being consistent in your wall ball, in your mental game study, in your footwork, in everything that you do, like keeping that high level of consistency. That's all we can control, right? And I think that if you're consistent in your preparation, you'll start to see more consistency in your results with
yeah.
those games of 1 or 2 saves always sprinkled in, right? That's what I told them anyway. So I don't know if that triggers
No,
something.
I think that is a great answer. I also think treating each game like very similarly. I
Mm,
think that you like not overhyping the big games, not
yeah.
undervaluing, maybe the not so big games.
Yeah.
Like treating every game as if it's important, but it's not the end of the world,
Yeah.
because a lot of the times you overhype these games against like top 10 teams, and then you get tight,
Yeah.
or you don't value team or other games that are against maybe like lower teams, and you aren't as like focused, So training that, like you said, getting like treating every day like it's an ACAC championship, but also knowing that that doesn't mean it's panicked, high intent, like very overhyped. It's training yourself to be at that like mid level of I'm in the zone, but I'm relaxed. I'm not freaking out about this game, but I'm not like, oh, I don't have to try, and obviously your emotions are going to fluctuate either way. And, maybe your best effort against some of the games where you're not as excited about it is like a 6 or a 7, but that's still consistent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that is a very good point. Because how often have you seen like, where you're playing that last place team and, you're supposed to dominate them, but going into the fourth quarter, it's a 1-goal game, right? And it's because you're not as focused.
Yeah.
And that could be in the preparation leading up to that game as well.
Yeah. Or they punch you in the mouth early and you're like, whoa, sorry. And I've definitely had that happen to me before, where I was like, okay, all these girls are playing college lacrosse for a reason, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I can't take a game off. And then also knowing, like, I've also had games where I got myself, I wouldn't say worked up is the right word for it, but I was very like tense because of how excited and like the pressure of the game. And that hurt me in the end too. So just being able to like gauge which way you need to go, whether it's like, do I need to get myself excited for this game, or do I need to relax myself for this game? So I'm at like that steady pace.
Yeah. What do you do to relax? Or how do you go down?
Yeah, so I'm just like, it sounds silly, but I'm like, okay, first off, and not that many people are here, people like, I'm okay, I'm a good goalie.
Yeah.
I like, I'm good, you know, the people who love me don't care whether I play horrible or not. My teammates trust me. I don't need to stand on my head to win this game. Kind of just like you talk yourself down and get yourself like lower into that kind of like headspace of like, I don't need to be the best player on the earth for us to win this game. My team just needs me to play like I play.
Yeah.
Kind of like can rock yourself down into that like headspace. And everything, it's going to be different for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
Like telling yourself what you need to tell. I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself. So being like, I mean, my mom's going to be proud of me either way,
Right.
And like, yeah, like it's that type of stuff,
That was actually a good question then. So then how do you get yourself up? How do you do it the other way?
But like, I think just, okay, like these girls they're well coached, you give them respect. I think they are well coached. They practice as much as you do. Like they are playing college lacrosse for a reason. You can't just like go in thinking that you're going to beat them without trying, And like I said, you might not be able to get your 9 or 10 from playing that, like doing that, but you might be able to get, rather than getting your 4 and not playing well, you might be able to get your 6 or 7. So I think that makes sense.
It does make sense. It does make sense. I love that. Well, Alecia, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love having New Yorkers on the show. Did I tell you that? The time goes by so fast.
I know. You talk a lot.
They talk a lot, and that's great for a podcast, right? You couldn't ask for a better guest. But anyway, the answers and the insight that you shared were awesome. Wish you nothing but luck and success for the upcoming season. And what stick are you using these days? What's your gear setup?
Yeah, I use the Eclipse 2 SDX.
Yeah.
I use the Epic Dragonfly, the narrow one, not the wide one. And then I use, I forget what it's called, but I use the String King, the like flex, the semi-hard flex, I think it is.
Their
not
mesh?
the semi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Got
mesh. So that's where I'm at.
Are you gonna try the 3, the Clips 3?
They haven't given it to us yet. If I'm being honest, I use what
Oh,
they gave me.
let's
So
go. Let's go.
I'm not very.
Come on, hook them up. Hook them up.
I'll
STX.
have to ask. I'll have to
Yeah.
ask them. I'll
Um,
ask me to get them
I like
in.
it. I like it quite a bit.
I'm a big fan of the bottom of the head, right where your hand sits.
The throat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Compared to the Eclipse 1, to the Eclipse 2, and I haven't used the Eclipse 3 yet, but I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, it's definitely sleeker. Do you like when you set up, do you grab the plastic? Is that how your top hand?
Yeah, but I'm very relaxed on my top hand.
Uh-huh.
So, and I don't like to be up on the where the head of the part of the head starts curving out.
Yeah,
I
so
like to
not super up here, but like kind of
yeah,
just down here. Yep.
up there, really relaxed. So I like feeling I like how it has the bumps.
Yeah.
I think it's so
Well,
cool.
so the new one doesn't have like you're talking about that little texture right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
new one doesn't have that. So that's
Really.
interesting. But it does have this little like, I don't know if you can see, it's like a little nub right here.
Okay, I do see
Which
it. Yes.
yeah, which is like I like it because like you can kind of like rest either your index finger, or if you want to go really high, you can rest your middle finger on there. So I like it.
Yeah, and I'm usually much more. I'm pretty open palmed. Like it looks like my hands are like this, but my thumb and pointer
Yeah.
are pretty relaxed. So I like being able to have my thumb feel it. So I'm a
Interesting.
big fan of flips.
So then does that get like when you have your palm sort of like almost open a little bit, like kind of
Yeah.
like this? Does
Yeah.
it get tight as the shot comes, or no? Then
Yeah.
you're just going for it.
It gets tight as the shot comes, but it helps with the low ones because then I'm not choking
Yeah.
it.
Less tension.
My hand over.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that I'm a very relaxed, you won't see me really tight anytime. So that's kind of how I am when I play.
Love it.
So
Alecia, if you had to leave the goalies out there with a final piece of advice, what would that be?
yeah, I just don't overthink it, make it relax, watch the ball, make the save. It sounds really easy, but and just go back to your fundamentals. Whether it's in the middle of a game, you're struggling, you're in a slump, or you just want to get better, go back to your fundamentals and trust them. That's yeah.
Awesome.
Easy.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.